I'm 정성은 and the topic of my presentation is dumpling. First, I will tell you what dumpling is. Second, I will talk about who invented dumpling first. Third, I will explain why do people like dumplings. And lastly, I will explain stage of making dumpling. What is dumpling? Dumpling is a small ball of dough. Asians usually enjoy dumpling as a meal and it is cooked in hot liquid. Also, it is eaten with meat and vegetables and it is cooked by boiling or steaming. A dumpling serves 127 calories. Who invented dumpling first? A Chinese medicine practitioner, Zhang invented dumpling the first in Eastern Han Dynasty. This was made in winter and people felt effects from cold. Why do people like dumplings? It access to healthy carbohydrates and it helps to regulate blood sugar levels.
Really?
And people enjoy as a simple meal. Stage of making dumplings. First, prepare the wrappers. Second, prepare the filling.
뭐야? 이거 무슨 초딩 때 너 어디 발표한 거 갖고 온 거 아니야? 어? 이게 뭐야? It's like I can't see anything informative and academic and like. Are you sure it's like you just made this presentations like within a certain amount of time, like within the period of time that we know? Are you sure?
아 근데 인터넷에 이렇게 나와 있어.
아니 인터넷에서 가져온 거 아니고?
인터넷에서 요약해서.
오케이.
왜? 뭐야 왜?
오케이. Next. 미치겠다. 왜 덤플링 이런 걸 갖고 왔지? 테드 애드도 있어 이게 덤플링이? Oh my goodness.
As archaeologists pored over ancient tombs in Turfan in western China, they discovered some surprisingly well-preserved and familiar relics. Though hardened from over 1,000 years, there sat little crescent-shaped dumplings.
What?
Exactly who invented dumplings remains a mystery, but some scholars suspect they were first spread around parts of the ancient world by nomadic Turkic peoples living in western China and Central Asia. This is thought to be the case because manti, meaning dumpling or steamed vine, in many Turkic languages, appears to be the root word for dumpling in several other languages. Ancient Turkic people probably stuffed their dumplings with meat, but it's unclear when this practice began, or whether they learned the art of dumpling making from others. However this happened, dumplings certainly gathered steam in ancient China. That's where they first appear in the written record, more than 1,700 years ago, in a mouth-watering rhapsody by scholar Shu Xi. In his poem, Shu alludes to certain cooking methods coming from alien lands. He describes a steamed wheat product as mantou, and he reverentially chronicles the preparation of kneaded dough balls called laoban. They're packed with pork, mutton, and aromatics, dipped in black meat sauce, then quickly gobbled up, leaving people downwind to drool and fantasy feast. Dumplings continued to take off and diversify in China over the next 1,000 years. Instead of the traditional meat filling, some communities opted for vegetarian dumplings. People developed new cooking methods, and because wheat was harder to cultivate outside of northern China, those in other regions began making dumplings using rice, tapioca, and sweet potato. The relationship between Chinese dumplings and those in other areas is tricky to trace, but food historians have made their best guesses based on available clues. Turkic tribes spread and eventually established the Ottoman Empire around 1300 CE, bringing wrapped morsels west with them. In what's now Turkey, most people wouldn't have stuffed dumplings with pork due to Islamic restrictions. Instead, manti would come to be filled with ingredients like lamb, drizzled with garlic, yogurt, and melted butter, then topped with herbs and spices. Some scholars believe that the Mongol Empire also helped disseminate dumplings, perhaps introducing them to parts of Eastern Europe. These dumplings could have come by way of China, or directly from some of the Turkic peoples the Mongols hired to run their empire. One theory is that this gave rise to dumplings like Russian pelmeni and the larger pierogi and varaniki, eaten in Poland and Ukraine, stuffed with things like potato, cabbage, cheese, and cherries. The Mongol Empire also controlled Korea, and might have likewise introduced dumplings there, where mandu may be eaten with regional ingredients like kimchi. Later, after Chinese dumpling varieties were introduced to more countries, English speakers began calling them dumplings. The term means little lumps, and is thought to have been first used in 16th century England to describe dough balls dropped in liquid. Like canoodle and matzo balls, they would have had no filling, so the word was actually confusingly imprecise, but it stuck nonetheless. When Japan occupied China during the Second World War, Chinese jiaozi were brought to Japan, where they in turn became known as gyoza, and were more typically pan-fried. So what about the fact that every region in Italy has its own variety of dumpling-like stuffed pasta? Some historians think that Arab conquerors brought dumplings when they reigned over Sicily between the 9th and 11th centuries, but the jury's still out. It's unlikely that all dumpling-esque dishes came from the same root tradition. In many cases, it may simply be that culinary visionaries from different cultures shared a similar revelation, that cooking fillings encased in dough would be delightful. Either way, we can appreciate these plump pockets of perfection and the tangled, mysterious historical web that's made dumplings so diverse and divine. This video was made possible.
First question is what is dumpling?
It's too open question. Can you narrow it down?
Dumpling is a small ball of dough. Second question. A dumpling serves blank calorie.
아, 이런 유치한 질문을 하면 어떡해.
127.
그걸 왜 외워?